All right, so today we're doing something really exciting. We're going to play around and learn about footprints. And this week we are diving deep as detectives, our own detectives, to learn what clues animal footprints have and leave behind. So, to start, let's go ahead and think about footprints. If you are out walking somewhere and see a bunch of footprints all over the place, what are some things you might consider? Feel free to say in the chat. Exciting. Okay, well, yes, absolutely. You might think about how many footprints there are, or if they have different shapes. Are there other elements? Like maybe what do you think of when you see some footprints, Peregrine?
Let's see if I've seen some footprints. I'm always wondering, who could have made them. I think I can tell when they're shoe shaped. I'm thinking about them being a person. But a lot of
Absolutely.
times, if it's an animal, I'm thinking about what animal it is. And actually, we just had a friend in the chat saying, you're thinking about what animal it might be, or you're noticing that
Right.
there were animals in that spot.
Yes, a great comment. Yes, what animal it is, exactly what animals were there. These are wonderful things. And that's what scientists actually do as well. You can kind of just take lots of moments of inquiry and see things about shape, spacing, maybe where the direction is heading, how many of them are there. And they'll tell you about things of animals that are no longer around, that are running around elsewhere, and even about animals in the past. So dinosaurs and all of these things, you actually have fossil footprints, which are the only footprints, or not only footprints, sorry, are the only fossils of living animals. So you can never really understand what a living animal is doing when they're fossilized, except for via footprints, because they wander around and leave them behind for us to learn about.
So they're kind of the clues. We can't see animals that lived far in the past, but we can see, you're saying, the footprints that they left behind. I love it.
Exactly. So cool. So what we're going to do today is do exactly that. Only we get to make the footprints ourselves. We're using our toys of various shapes and sizes. I have some here today. Do you have some with you, Peregrine?
No, I have some, yes. So I have a couple, like this. I have a little lizard here. I've got a
Perfect.
very small crocodile, a small yellow and orange
Yep.
crocodile. Um, I'll show you what else I have. Friends, if you are doing the experiment with us, let us know what kind of animals you have. I have some dinosaurs.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
I
I
have
also have a dinosaur.
And it's okay. These are not animals that I don't think I'm going to be seeing many rhino
Oh,
footprints.
nope.
I'm living in Durham. Um, I also have this interesting um, dinosaur skeleton,
Yes.
but
Very exciting.
it's still, oh, I have a giraffe, but it's still, it'll work for our experiment. Sounds like we
Yes.
have some friends who have a hippo, they have dinosaurs, ooh, they have some Paw Patrol toys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very cool. A lion and giraffe. We even got an ox and a penguin. How cool. Now, you may notice that some of your toys aren't exactly comparable to each other in size. Like my lemur is the size of a tiger. Um, but that is totally okay. We are using our imaginations here, and these are still leaving footprints behind. What you will do in the wild is you can guess things about size based on the size of the footprints. The same is true with our toys. It's just that your tigers and lemurs might be similar sizes in the toy world.
So what else do we need for this experiment?
So yes, for this experiment also, if you guys have different types of soil or Play-Doh in this instance, I have some Play-Doh. And Peregrine, I know you have some various textures that you're working with, but something which the animals can walk on is one of our big materials needs, as well as a container if your soil or dirt material is a little messy. And another element that you do need is some sort of obstacle or something. It can be from nature. Mine is some connected toys, but sticks or leaves. Exactly. What do you have there, Peregrine?
I have some Jenga blocks and I have a little piece of fake plant because we're going to be kind of making our own miniature landscapes. So I have
Exactly.
Play-Doh that I can use. And then I also have some sand. And if you are like me and you're using some sand, the size of the animals that we're using aren't going to leave too much of a footprint in just dry sand.
Very
So
true.
if you want to, I know that I am going to add a little bit of water to my sand.
Oh, beautiful. We have a snail shell as one of the elements of our nature.
Ooh, that's so lovely. I love
Very
finding.
cool environment.
I love that we have a friend who was saying that they could only find Muppet Baby toys, but at least they have interesting feet. That'll be very identifiable.
That will be cool. Absolutely. Yes. And that's going to be one element. We're talking about behavior here. Well, one thing that's really interesting with footprints is animals are going to interact with the environment differently based on who they are. So when you're building your environments, which we will do in a moment, you're going to see how your toys interact differently, maybe based on their size, based on whether or not they can fly, anything like that. So really cool concepts here. I'm going to add some water to my dirt as well. You probably won't be able to see it, but that'll help our toys kind of maybe make an indent.
Make an impression. So let's go ahead and we'll start setting up our environments.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do that is pour some water on my sand. If you have Play-Doh, what should we do if we have some Play-Doh?
So if everyone has, or if anyone has Play-Doh, one thing that you really want to do is to get an even cooler impression, try and get it as flat as you can using your fingers or maybe even a rolling pin, something to just smooth it down. We don't want a big clump. If you have a clump, as long as it's smoothed on the sides, you want to be able to get an impression of a footprint. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my experiment cam for a moment here so you can see the Play-Doh.
Perfect. I'm going to be smoothing out my sand while you're doing that.
Yes, absolutely. Now to build your environment, your goal is to create a wonderful surface for your animals of the day to walk on. That way, when you or someone you know walks in and looks at these footprints, they can be a detective and say different things that they think the animal might have done when they walked across your sand, your Play-Doh, whatever environment you have. Now, once you have your sand flattened or your Play-Doh flattened, you can go ahead and start adding some natural elements to your environment as well. I'm going to go ahead and add my little Lincoln blocks here to this environment. That way the critters can have fun with them. Feel free to put in the chat what you are putting in your environment.
Sounds great. I'm going to go to my experiment cam too, so that we can see some of our different environments.
Sounds wonderful.
I'm going to start with just my Play-Doh one, and then I'll do my sand for my next one. So I'm going to have this here like a little tree almost, and these are going to be kind of like fallen logs is what I'm imagining.
Oh, I love it. That sounds wonderful. Mine's a bit of a shelter here.
Very nice.
All right.
In kind of a scaled environment for them to walk on.
Definitely. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do after this is we are going to take some of our animals and have them start to play around with our environment and see what sorts of things we are noticing about their footprints and how changing the way they move might change their footprints. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this little bird here, as well as this lemur. So I have two lovely animals. What do you have, Peregrine?
I think I'm going to pick, I have this little lizard, and I'm going to pick my giraffe.
Perfect.
Sounds like we have some really beautiful environments. We have a friend in the chat saying that they have rocks and flower petals and sticks and acorns and onion grass in their beautiful environment. Now, this isn't just to help us imagine a beautiful place for our animals to walk. It's going to be part of what we're assessing. So if we have our animals walking,
absolutely,
like this, right, they can't quite bend their knees.
Not quite, but you can use your imaginations here.
And then something happens, Caroline, when my giraffe got to this log.
Yes, it, what do you guys see? What is happening with the giraffe? Ooh, I don't know about you. Do you notice anything about the footprints?
It looks like they start, but then they stop.
Absolutely. So if I were to walk up upon that and suddenly there were no footprints right next to this log, do they pick up on the other end of the log? Oh, they do. Absolutely. Now that might tell us something pretty cool. It looks like the wood isn't flexible. Absolutely. We
Mhm.
just heard in the chat that the wood is not flexible. That is very true.
What a great observation.
Yes. So that might tell us something, that the footprints disappeared. And it's not because the animal is gone, but rather the animal interacted with the environment in a certain way. In other words, they went over the obstacle. So over what's in their environment. Now, comparatively, my little lemur here, if you notice, what are you seeing here, Peregrine? They've run into, and this little block here was in the way. What happened with them? Did they go over it?
Well, it doesn't look like they were able to go over it. It looks like they had to go around it. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So that's something that's really cool that you will see in the wild as well, and with your toys, that animals, depending on their size or what they can do, may go over, around, or even sometimes you might have some animals go under your elements of the environment.
Oh, so it also gives us a sense of size.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So it's their behavior, how they're interacting, and it can also tell us, right, like their size in comparison to other things. Um, I also had my dinosaur walk over where my giraffe walked, um,
Yes.
and I
Ooh.
noticed that some of the footprints started covering some of the giraffes, or almost covering the
Mhm.
giraffes, especially kind of
Definitely.
here.
Yes, it looks like they're almost squishing the giraffes. They're kind of on top of. What would you say about that, friends? If you just stumbled upon these footprints, who would you say came first?
Hmm. Do we think the giraffe would have come first, or the
Or
big dinosaur?
dino? Exactly. So yes, the giraffe came first. And what happened is, as the giraffe walked away, later on, the dinosaur followed suit. And the same thing happens here. I will get another animal with lots of weird feet, perhaps a frog, came through. And when these animals walk in the same environment, their feet will essentially overmark the feet of the previous animal. So you have this intermingling of footprints.
I have a really great comment. Someone is saying that they like seeing the tail prints that some of the dinosaurs are leaving. So this was really cool. I was noticing this when I was practicing with this little guy here.
Mhm.
I'm going to turn this over just so that we can see some new tracks.
Yes.
We can kind of see same thing here, where when my guy moves, I can see that it leaves a bit of a track, and especially since this one has such short legs and kind of a belly that drags along, it leaves very different kinds of trails.
Absolutely. Now that can tell you something about their movement or locomotion. Just like Peregrine was saying, a very low belly there, and your tails are going across. Now, what you might wonder is, how many feet are you seeing? Are you seeing a feet plus tails? Are you seeing 2 feet walking in following steps? That can tell you whether or not the animal is moving bipedally, which means on 2 feet.
So if they're bipedal, they walk on two, and if they're quadrupedal, they walk on four. This is really useful.
Absolutely. And
I
that tail element is also part of their locomotion. Do they balance with their tail? Like this right here?
I love the way that that looks. That's so cool. I was trying a little bit out of my sand, which also leaves prints pretty well together. And seeing us talking about tails reminded me of some footprints that I've seen before, like especially if I see beaver footprints. They look really cool, and they often have a dragging tail, and that helps you identify them.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. So there's so many things you can learn from footprints.
I was thinking here, maybe just in the last minute, Caroline,
Mhm.
I teach a nature class here at the museum, and I was down by Ellerby Creek, and I
Mhm.
had some pretty cool looking footprints that I found, and I wanted to show us some pictures really quickly. So I
Yes,
to see if I could just share my screen to show you all some pictures.
that'd be
Um,
wonderful to see.
like this one in the sand. This one is a hoof print from a deer. So it looks kind of like this.
Mhm.
Let's see what other ones I have. These are really cool. I was thinking these might be from, maybe some of them are from a mink. So I
Ooh.
have a little rubber mink uh, kind of footprint cast here that you
Mhm.
can use. Um, and I don't know, it looks like some of them. So it looks maybe a little bit like that. You can count the number of toes and see. I'm noticing that some of
Absolutely.
these, I feel like a few of them have 5, but some of them have 4.
Mhm.
Could be like a little muskrat footprint, which is a little bit smaller and has,
Mhm.
what else do we?
Definitely.
This one I think is definitely a mink print. You can see that it has those 5 toes.
Yes, yes, you can totally see how there's the toe prints basically making an impact, and that'll help you identify the animals, especially where they put the pressure on the prints. Like, are you seeing all of the toes, or are you only seeing some of the toes?
These I wanted to show because they're really cool raccoon prints. So raccoons have a front paw that looks kind
Mhm.
of like this, and then a back paw that's much longer.
Wonderful.
So that's something that can help us tell them apart, like that.
So
And
cool.
this one I thought could help us talk about behavior, like maybe this one went at a different speed or was a little heavier because we could see those claw marks. These
Mhm.
are great. They're from a big water bird. We think from a big heron.
Oh, amazing. Yes. Now, the spacing of those, do you guys think that they are walking or perhaps moving a little bit further with each leg movement, maybe a little faster, perhaps?
This is a really good point. You can tell when some kinds of animals are running versus walking. This
Yes.
one I'm gonna do with a pair of tweezers. Animals like skunks, especially, almost run sideways. So if they're walking, we
Mhm.
would kind of see tracks a little bit more like this, right? But if
Yes.
they are running, and actually, let me actually use 2 different things here so that I can have 2 instead of just one. Um, so instead of walking, more like this, if they're running, they're almost going to be like that in
Oh,
little
amazing.
of 4.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let me flatten this out so we don't get confused. They're going to almost be in little groups of 4 like this, because when they're running, their feet are falling much more rapidly.
Mhm. Mhm. That makes total sense.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can be a nature detective outside. This is something that can help us practice making hypotheses when we're thinking about connecting the clues that animals leave behind with their behaviors, with the size of their body, with the type of environment we're looking at. There's a lot of different. There's just so much data to put together. I really like this. This is Caroline, an amazing idea that you had for an activity. So I really appreciated being able to do it with you.
Oh, definitely. I've really appreciated having everyone be able to come and use their imaginations to play with all of the different things we see. And hopefully, going forward, as you said, this is a great way to connect with concepts out in nature. And you can kind of really be your own detectives, determine whether or not an animal interacted with their environment a certain way. what type of animal that might have been. I'm very glad that you were able to be here and join with me on all of this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, friends, for being here and for doing this experiment. I hope that that you'll continue playing in your landscape that you have made. I hope that you'll think about different things you can use to make footprints. Perhaps you could even kind of create it, turn it into a game. You can always have some footprints and have your friend or a member of your family try and guess what they think happened. I hope
Exactly.
you'll also take it outside, see what kind of footprints you notice, especially if it's in an area with moisture or after a bit of rain. You'll be surprised at what kind of amazing footprints things leave behind.
Yes. So
We're
wonderful.
Yeah, it really is so cool. We're here at time today, but I hope that maybe we can see some of you all next week for Lab at Home. We are going to be kind of commemorating Brain Awareness Week and going to be doing some experiments that have to do with memory. So memory and our senses, it's going to be a really interesting one. Thank you all so much for being with us today. I hope that we'll see you next week. Caroline, thank you so much for leading this awesome little lab.
Yes, of course. Thank you everyone so much for joining. It was wonderful to have you here.
Awesome. We'll
Okay,
see you all
bye
next time.
friends.